I started doing mobile before mobile became the in thing. And one of the questions on the panel earlier was, well, where do you see the future going? And one of them is, well, the future is mobile. I beg to differ. I think the history is mobile. I think we've been mobile way longer than we've been giving ourselves credit for. Started with a telegram, actually. All right, so what is mobile marketing? What makes it different? Some of the key factors. I'm going to go into some case studies, and I'm also going to give you some, does anybody use Adwords? All right, I'm also going to give you some tips and tricks as far as your mobile campaigns are concerned on that. If you don't know what an M is, where I work, we're a boutique resort in Las Vegas, and since this is a startup conference, it kind of fits in really well because we do startups all the time, every single year. We're about 5 years old at this point, so we're still one of the newer resorts, but we're also involved in a lot of other businesses, and because everything in the resort is owned by one owner, we deal in pretty much everything from hotel to restaurants to the pool to gaming, you name it. Me personally, I've been writing code for over 30 years. I've been in marketing for over 20 years, and so I tend to, just like Sandeep takes inspiration from cooking and from from different aspects of his life, and he kind of parallels it. So I'm the same way. I come originally from the fashion industry and from advertising, and so everything that I think about in utilization and also how it looks. So, mobile marketing. I mean, honestly, who doesn't have a phone in this room, right? Nobody's raising their hand. Who doesn't check it at least once an hour? How many of you, just quick question, how many of you have got Apple iPhone? Wow. And then I'm assuming the rest are Androids? Okay. And do we have any flip phone users still left? No? All right. Didn't think it was the right one. But so with those phones, with those smartphones, we started out, most people originally thought, well, mobile marketing is just texting, right? And so you have to fit all of this information into a very small space. But then it went about with online advertising, and then again, we found out a couple of months ago, and it was brought up again, April 21st, mobile is becoming even that much more important because your website better be optimized for mobile as well. Although technically Google says that it's not going to count the desktop search against you if your website isn't optimized for mobile, but we all know they lie. So, and then of course social media, because a lot of people, they use their phones for social media. It used to be that mobile was I don't know, let's say 10% of the interaction between you and somebody else, and now I would have to say it's easily the dominant one. I know several people who only use tablets and phones. They don't even have a desktop or a laptop anymore. And if you think about it, what makes mobile marketing different from all the other types of marketing that you've got going on? And it's really the speed, and it's really the mindset, and you really have to be in the now in order to figure out what your consumer wants. If you're, I don't know, if you're advertising or if you're trying to sell some sort of warm clothing, and then all of a sudden there's a cold spell, there's a warm spell that's happening, then you probably shouldn't be advertising at that point, Or if there is all of a sudden something rainy that's happening, then maybe if you've got some leftover umbrellas, then you should probably be, pushing that. The reason why I got together with Vasil a couple of years ago was because of a success rate in being able to get 24-hour turnaround time from conception to implementation to ROI, 24 hours, and that's possible with mobile, whereas that's not necessarily possible with other forms of communication. So if that is sending out an email that's mobilely optimized, if that is, and then obviously if you're sending out an email, then it has to lead them back to their website. If that is sending out text messages that are about, oh, you know what, last minute deal. We've got some leftover vodka, you know, I don't know, $3 a shot. I don't know, whatever comes to mind. And then but then of course it's also coming up with the right terminology for all of that. Whoops. One of the big things that we've been talking about here is you really have to know your customer. You have to know who it is that you're talking to. A lot of people think that, well, because they see teenagers on their phones all the time, that you're talking to teenagers mainly. But believe it or not, as far as like people who actually buy, people who actually interact, and we're not taking like social into this aspect here, they skew older. They skew older, they skew wealthier, because you have to put a lot of money out in order to invest in the equipment. And those are the ones that will typically also interact with an ad, that will typically interact with an email, and that will then make a purchase either on your website or that will come into your establishment, depending on what it is that you're trying to do. And I mean, what is it that people want? They want news if they're on their phone. I mean, that's why you check your emails, right? They want food a lot of times. Like, I know one of the things that I did when I came here is just like, you know, Italian restaurants nearby. And then obviously navigation. How do they get there? Well, search engine ads is one way to do it, right? And then search engines, you have to keep in mind that in the context of, as you're on the fly, the type of words that you would use in order to search for something is probably different than if you're just kind of like laid back on your iPad or maybe even on your computer. You'll probably use more intricate words when you're more relaxed, and you probably are going to use shorter, more immediate words when you're in the moment when you're looking for something right now. Like, for example, I didn't put in best Italian restaurants nearby me. I just put in Italian restaurants nearby me because I just want some pasta, damn it. You know, I've been on Atkins for way too long today. In the fashion industry, we tend to make up a story about our customers. So we will sit for hours and hours and study people, and then in order to be able to market to them. This is actually, I think, the biggest mistake that happens in marketing, particularly in mobile marketing. Because since you're talking in immediacy, a lot of times what you do is you're trying to create a campaign that sells to yourself. But how many people are there just like you? I mean, unless you know that this is the group that you're marketing to and that you are your target audience, then fantastic, go for it. But what if you're not? Like for our casino, I'm not the target audience. Our target audience for where we're at is retired, more men than women, and I'm not a guy, and I'm definitely not retired. So you have to become a method actor of sorts. You have to know the customer better than you do yourself. You have to know, like, how do they talk? How do they sit? Where do they eat? What do they want? What problems do they have? How do they behave? And I mean, that's with any kind of product design. Does anybody here deal with like 3D products? Or is it all services? All services? Who does service? All services, okay. Even services is still, you have to put yourself in a 3D product design mode, because if somebody's using your service, how do they use it? How do they interact with it? You know, when you're seeing, let's say for instance, if you're going to a restaurant website and you see the word special events, how many of you think that means a calendar of events? And how many of you think that this is kind of like their group sales? About 50-50, right? So what does your customer think? And that's the beautiful part about this day and age. We can do so much research. We can, like other people have said, you can go to your competitors' websites, to their blogs, see how they interact with you in social media. And I mean, that's really the main reason to do social media, is in order to research who your customer is. So before you start anything, you really need to have a solid foundation in marketing, period. And I think that's the biggest mistake that I see, because mobile is just one more avenue of marketing. And if you don't know how to market properly, then mobile is not going to get you anywhere. You're not going to be able to get that 24-hour turnaround rate. So who's your audience? What do you hope to accomplish? When do you need to accomplish it by? Obviously, a deadline. Where is the product and service? If it's localized, then you need to know how to target that specific area. But even if it's not localized, I mean, a lot of times, like, you don't necessarily are going to deal with people in Alaska or in China, or people that speak a different language from you. And what's the most important message that you can bring across? If there is one thing that I cannot stress enough, it's being concise. Just like, I forgot the gentleman's name who was up here with the app, and where he was talking about you've got like 20 different links, and you shouldn't have 20 different links in your email. In the end, there should be just one singular link, a button of where you click on and saying, okay, this is the action, this is what I want you to do. Yes, thank you. So that is so true with mobile. You cannot distract them with like 500 different things. It has to be one item, one specific thing that you want them to do. And then, of course, how are you going to reach them? How many of you guys know what a SWOT analysis is? Right. Do you actually do them? So, right? But I think it's important, because you have to know what your strengths, what your weaknesses, what your opportunities, and what your threats are. And you have to do that for every aspect of your business. So then this way, all right, well, what is then the best? It guides you in how is the best way to reach my customer? How is the best way to communicate with my customer? What can I do better than my competitor? Or what can my competitor do better than I? A lot of times, even referring people to your competitor can be a good thing, believe it or not. So here are some case studies. We have a pool, obviously. We also have a concert series at the pool. And it's a free concert. You go in. The alcohol is not free, but admission is free. Live entertainment. And let's see, I found out about having to put a campaign for this about the morning of. And then we had to get people through the door by roughly around 7 o'clock that night. And so I turned to our department, I'm like, and would you like fries with that? What did I do? Well, came up with a sexy girl, used blue in order to kind of like bring the pool thing across. Free works very well. That's always a very, very good word to use. Even though some people will tell you that spam will filter it out, it's very effective. So free concert, pool parties. This is an ad that I ran, and also I did email marketing with it, and I did SMS with it. And the online marketing, I limited it to California, Arizona, and Utah, other than locally, because those are surrounding areas. And then this is what performed best. Free, free, free in the subject line. And that was the best image that performed best. Now, what you notice about that image is I kept a lot of the clutter out. You have high contrast. If you were to reduce this image to 1/4 of the size, which is the key that you have to keep in mind, you can still make out what it says. You might not necessarily be able to see like the very top line, the swim dance, but the M Pool Live and Saturdays is still visible, and that's very important. So these are the results. It worked. Then here's another one that was just kind of like around the corner. We had some people were coming into town for the Super Bowl, but they weren't coming to town before the Super Bowl. And we had to figure out a way to get them to book hotel rooms. And again, high contrast lettering, you know, I kept it very simple. Here it kind of like emphasizes the news aspect of things. And, you know, because people were looking for information about, right at around that time, they were looking for stats about the football, the teams, things like that, betting habits. And so then that is what worked best for us. Quick tip for AdWords users. So there are family-unfriendly words like alcohol, casino, gambling, things like that. If you have an established account, you can get around using those as long as you're pre-approved for it. Usually it means that you have to have a physical location if you're doing this for clients. Text ads are reviewed by software. Image ads are reviewed by people. And the image ads that are reviewed by people are in India. They're not here in the United States. So keep that time zone difference in mind when you submit ads. Probably you will get faster turnaround time if you submit ads like around 5 o'clock in the afternoon as opposed to 8 a.m. in the morning. Because I've done it. I've submitted ads at 8 in the morning and at 5, and the ones at 5 were approved first, and the ones at 8 took like sometimes 2 days to approve. And, you know, spread your ads over several campaigns because sometimes they can be approved or disapproved just for absolutely no reason. Yes, ma'am. Well, I mean, Google she was asking who has to approve your ad, right? And it's not any one particular person. It's just, you know, it's kind of like a call center, if you will, right? And because AdWords has God knows how many advertisers, and so they have to, the image ads, they have to review one by one before it gets approved. And the people who review them live in the country of India. Those are AdWords, yes. Mm-hmm. So the takeaway from all of this actually should be that I cannot emphasize enough how much research you should do. You can never do too much research. Like I said, you should know the customer better than you know yourself. You should be a method actor at that point. Optimize every outlet that you have. Optimize your website. Don't split your website into a mobile version and into a desktop version. Who needs that anymore? Particularly when people are utilizing, you know, their mobile devices more than their desktop devices. Keep the credit, the search engine credit, all in one stream. And if you optimize for mobile, then everything else will fall in line. When you write copy, and this is where it goes back to the Telegram thing, everything that we do today got started by the invention of the Telegram. So because of the Telegram, because things would get cut off, you would have to keep things short. You would have to put the most important information up front. And the Telegram influenced news copy, and news copy influenced the way that we do advertising, and advertising influences mobile. And mobile is just the ultimate version of the Telegram. Now we don't have to go to someplace to tap it out for us. We can just do it on our own phones. When you create images, and it doesn't matter if it's for your website, if it is for an ad that you're doing, if it is for an app that you're doing, make it clean, make it simple, keep the clutter out of it. You're not trying to get it to look like an 18th century library, you know. You're trying to get them to focus on one item, and that one item only, because people have very little attention spans these days. and be ready to respond quickly. You know, if, like I said, if there is, for some reason or other, like the weather is part of something that might influence what you do, then respond to that immediately. If there's something bad that happened, you know, be able to respond to that immediately. And the only way that you can respond immediately goes right full back circle, if you've done your research. Because once you're prepared and you have all the information and you know the customer better than you do yourself, then of course you don't even have to think about, you know, how it is that you're going to respond. Thank you very much.